Ahead, Srinivas.
Yeah. Good morning, afternoon, evening. This is a book club, season 5, session 5. So this actually marks completion of 50 sessions we had together.
Wow.
So, Milind will make some announcements later, but I think right now we'll start focus on the children of the LA. But before that, we have two birthday boys, and one of them is with us. Over to you, Sharad.
Sharath, go ahead.
What will Sharath say for his birthday?
Is he muted?
Sharad, are you there?
Hey, why are you
Is it the
asking
big one?
Sharath?
Is
Why
it
are
the big
Sharath
one?
there?
That's the
Because
We
point.
need to sing.
I thought we are supposed to wish his birthday. Happy birthday,
Happy
Sharath.
birthday.
Happy birthday, Sharath.
Thank you. Sorry, there was somebody at the door and there was nobody else awake. Sorry for that.
But you already had your big one last
Happy
year,
birthday,
right? So I don't
Sharath.
know.
Yeah, already done last year, done, finished.
Okay, go ahead, Sharath.
Happy birthday.
Happy
Share
birthday,
some-
Sharath.
What am I going ahead with?
Share some thoughts with us.
Happy birthday.
Don't leave the
Mishti,
room.
Dada, Mishti
Sharath,
kothaye?
I told you there was somebody at the door ringing the bell and nobody else is awake. I had to leave. Sorry for that.
Okay, let's give Sharath a chance to say a few things. Go ahead.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah.
Why are you putting me on the mat for this?
Just talk about
Yeah.
Trump. Don't worry, Sharath.
That's what birthday boys do.
What do birthday boys do? Say things.
Speak a little.
They say how much they love Trump, Sharath.
No, I just look. It's now been what 42 years now. 42 years. That's right. Since we moved to Dubai, and it's been one of the things that sometimes when I think about it, did I even ever believe that I'd be still here in Dubai in 2025 when we came in 1983? And it's been quite something, quite a ride for us to be part of the development of this place, development of the city. And some of you have been here and visited us. And we all sort of came here for 2 years. Literally, this is the phrase that you'll hear from virtually everybody whom I know who's a long-term resident of Dubai. We came here for 2 years. We thought we'd go back, and most of us have never done. Gautam is with us today. Gautam also came like us, who's been a long-term resident of Dubai. And it's just wonderful. It's a wonderful place, wonderful friends. It's more like more like home for us. For the kids, it's home. They've not seen anything else. They've seen Dubai as a place, and really, it's become a place that we all have got to really love as a city. And it's, I mean, I was at a function called Jashn-e-Ekta last weekend in Dubai, which is the Urdu festival. And you have a place where the people from Pakistan, from India, and I met one guy who's an Ahmadiyya who lives in Germany and who say he can't even go back to Pakistan. You sort of think about all of these things and you say, look, Dubai is such a wonderful place in terms of tolerance, in terms of, living together in harmony. And I just think that it's a place that many people should be emulating, especially when you hear of all the rubbish that's happening in the US now and the kind of hatred that we are seeing and the kind of announcements that appear from leaders around the world. Sometimes I think that even a small country like the UAE can provide such great, sensible, tolerant policies. And, it's one of the places that has a minister of tolerance. And it's not just in name alone. They actually live that spirit. I mean, we go to the Gurdwara in Dubai. The Gurdwara in Dubai has iftar party, and they call all the local people. I mean, it's just a wonderful place to be. So anyway, I'm rambling on about Dubai because I just think it's a place that has so many lessons for everybody, and certainly has taught us all to here in Dubai to love it and enjoy it. And last thought would be on the book club. The book club, I think, is a fantastic forum for us. Thank you, Milind. Thank you, Yanks, for keeping us together. You said this is the 50th session today. Congrats to all of us. really wonderful. And I think this is to me, it's something I look forward to. It's brought me back into the habit of reading, which was one of the reasons I remember when we first got together and said we should do it, was the primary purpose. And some of the books that I have read, including one today, I would not have gone and bought it and read it on my own. And I think the impetus that has come from the group is absolutely wonderful. And really, thank you all. Thank you again for the greetings. And have a wonderful day and a wonderful year for everybody. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you, Sharath. That
Thank
was
you,
very
Sharath.
well said. Yeah.
Happy birthday again.
Thank you.
Happy birthday
Thanks.
to you. Yeah. And a
Thank
good
you
year
so much.
ahead.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll soak
So,
in.
but before that, what exactly was Swapi trying to say in that?
Maybe we should check out with him.
I didn't even know he was a book club member, by the way.
He's one of the originals,
Yes.
guys. He's one of the originals.
Yeah,
I remember.
Swapi is a member. He's on an extended sabbatical right now.
For last 4 years.
Actually,
Yeah.
because of this, since he's committing, he's gone to the Kumbh, Mahakumbh right now with the rest of the Delhi gang.
Okay. So now we'll spend 2 minutes getting into the Egyptian mood.
Is the myth supposed to change, Swapi? Sorry. Yes.
Thank you. Beautiful. That puts
Great.
us back in Arabia and in the middle of Cairo. In the distance, I could see signs of the mansion of Gebelavi. That was nice at the end of the alley. Thank you, Srinivas.
Yeah. You will start taking the session, Milind.
Yeah. So I just wanted to say I agree with everything that Sharath expressed so beautifully on the occasion of our 50th session. And it is really thanks to all 35 of us that we've come this far. When we started, I did not think we would sustain our energies, but thanks to all of you, we've come this far, and I'm sure we'll keep going. So this is something to celebrate. So Srinivas and I decided that next month we will do something by way of celebration, and the festivities will continue into April. So with that promise, I won't say anything more and keep you in suspense. I also want to say, before I hand over to Nidhi as the reader of the month, that a lot of the success story of the club is thanks to suggestions from various members. And as and when the opportunity arises, I will continue to give credit. But today, let me start by saying the idea of a reader of the month so that we get books of different flavor thankfully came from Nidhi 4 years ago. And this institution has really established itself very well over the 4 years. And today, since she pioneers new ideas, we have a new entity which I will talk about later. But for now, let me hand it over to Nidhi to give us an overview of the children of Gebelavi. Go ahead, Nidhi.
Thanks, Milind. Thanks for the kind words. Also, a big thanks to Vikram and Geeta for being reflectors, and to Abdul and Saida for talking in general around related themes. I know it's not easy to take the time and the trouble to put all the thinking together, so I really appreciate them doing it. So with that, I'll just start with a little overview of the book. When the Egyptian writer Najib or Naguib, the internet is mixed on whether it should be Najib or Naguib. But when the Egyptian writer Naguib Mahfouz won the 1988 Nobel Prize for Literature, the Swedish Academy laid strong emphasis on his allegorical novel Children of the Alley, describing it as an allegory of humanity's historic destiny under the great monotheistic founders of religion. Using the narrative framework of a Cairo alley, the work delineates the spiritual and social history of man from Genesis to the present day. The main characters represent God and Satan, Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel, Moses, Jesus, and Muhammad. In thin disguise, the prophets are portrayed as social reformers, striving to save their people from tyranny and oppression. Mahfouz then boldly allegorizes the death of God in the modern world, at the hands of a new prophet, the magician who personifies science. In his youth, Mahfouz was deeply influenced by the Egyptian thinker and writer Salama Musa, a Fabian socialist and a friend of George Bernard Shaw. From Salama Musa, he says, "I've learned to believe in science, socialism, and tolerance." When the novel was serialized in the daily newspaper Al-Ahram in 1959, it generated a mixed reaction of deep admiration and intense hostility. Mahfouz faced the outcry of religious zealots who unleashed their fury at the godlessness of the work and its deviation from the Quranic story. In their outrage, some of them demanded that Mahfouz be brought to trial, asserting that his profane portrait of Muhammad verged on heresy. As a result of fiery sermons by the clergy of Al-Azhar Mosque against the novel, no Egyptian publisher dared to print it in book form. It was only in 1967 that it was published, slightly expurgated, in Beirut. This unprecedented furor is now frequently compared to the uproar over Salman Rushdie's The Satanic Verses, which religious fundamentalists regard as an insult to Islam by a blasphemous apostate. In 1994, Mahfouz was attacked and stabbed in the neck by two extremists outside his Cairo home. He survived the attack, yet he suffered from its consequences until his death in 2006. Children of the Alley explores universal and timeless aspects of the human predicament through the ages. It suggests that greedy and despotic rulers have deprived common people of their rightful share in the wealth of the earth, so that the vast majority of the human race have always lived in misery and destitution. The three great prophets have attempted to save their peoples from these evils, but the teachings have been consistently undermined and distorted by their successors, who have generally tended to form alliances with the rulers. The short-lived victories of the three prophets in the novel raises serious questions about the adequacy and efficacy of their doctrines, which have failed to provide permanent solutions to end human suffering in this world. Gabalavi's isolation behind doors inspires doubts about God's nature, that he is not good and just by human standards, that he's not in control of human society, that he takes no heed of man's fears and aspirations, or that his ways are beyond human comprehension, or that he does not exist. This book also reveals Mahfouz's profound interest in science. Arafa, the magician or scientist, asserts that his magic gives him a power 10 times that of the three prophets put together. The novel tells us that in the modern era, science has supplanted religion as an instrument of social revolution, holding out the promise of progress and prosperity. But it has also been corrupted and abused, particularly the superpowers, which have coerced scientists into providing them with devastating weapons to suppress part of the human race and exploit the resources of the world. And also, in some ways, science has unwittingly led to the death of religion by undermining the validity of spiritual values. And this demise of God, capital G, has created a tremendous vacuum in the lives of many people, leaving them without purpose or direction. However, not all is doom and gloom. Science is also an infinite reservoir of possibilities. It can be used to harness the energies of nature for the mastery and benefit of man, defeat tyranny, and help establish social justice. Thus, at the end of the book, Mahfouz, although vaguely, he does suggest the possibility of revival. Possibly a new generation of humanistic scientists can find the right formula for happiness and prosperity, which has eluded their predecessors. And in the interests of full transparencies, I got this material a lot from the internet. Lazy. Got it from the internet, much of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Nidhi, for putting it all together so well and a very comprehensive overview of the book. I just wanted to say that the ideas of science, socialism, and religious tolerance is what I think this book highlights. And to your central theme of hatred, I find it really interesting that Salman Rushdie and Mahfouz, Naguib Mahfouz, as I call him, met with a similar fate after a fatwa. We will hear a little more about Salman Rushdie's book, but let me stop there and wait for the moment in the program when that will happen. So with that, we go to the reflections portion of today's program, and leading the reflections, is Geeta making her debut as a reflector. So please welcome her to the role. And Geeta, it's all yours.
Thank you, Milind. Hello, everyone. At the outset, I would like to say that I read this whole story without any background about the story or the author. I did not read any reviews of the story, nor did I get to read Nidhi's summary of the story. Sriram missed forwarding it to me till I completed reading the book. The role of Gabalavi. I've said Gabalavi. The title says Gebelavi, but the Children of the Alley book spells it as Gabalavi. Gabalavi was the patriarch of the family, all-knowing, godlike, rich, and arrogant. Had his way all through, lived to see multiple generations of his descendants. His presence, or just thoughts of his presence, were sufficient to keep the alley going. The godlike stature that he commanded ensured that no one went against his wishes. Those who did were banished publicly from his estate, from his goodwill, or his nods or thoughts of approval. He did show his disapproval by ignoring them and by maintaining sheer indifference to their presence. 4 generations of people, the descendants of Gabalavi, were living within Gabalavi's eyesight in the alleys just outside the mansion. He ruled amongst them in thoughts, words, and actions. Through 100+ years by his sheer presence in the mansion. Every descendant lived through his or her lifetime with thoughts circling. Youngs, if you can move this up, please. Scroll up. Yeah. Thoughts circling around there being a descendant of this patriarch in the mansion. Can we go to the next page, please? Several times through the years and across generations, we see the belief that Gabalawi's command had to be executed. Gabalawi has appeared before us and told us that we should do good to the rest of the community. If he has said it, we must do it. This drove people to act. The person who was lucky enough to be identified by Gabalawi and commanded by him to take up an activity took his command as the main driver for any activity that he took up. Be it through peaceful means or through violence, did not really matter in driving each of these chosen men. Each one became a leader and won his way to a state of goodness or perished during the process. Such was the power of Gabalawi. Okay, I move on to talk about oppression and exploitation. Themes of oppression. Muscle power was determining who has the say in any of the alleys. Protection money had to be paid to the designated protector by everyone, including the poor. People were being treated badly. They were being slapped, spit upon by the protector. The protector's praise had to be sung or declared every time anyone met him. Gangsters were the protectors of the alley, and they did not hesitate to kill anyone for the smallest of reasons, or for no reason at all. The overseer of the mansion kept all the money collected for the estate to himself and paid a sum for those gangsters who were designated as protectors of different alleys. The people of the alley remained in abject poverty most of the time and had no way out of it. Not a word was to be spoken by any person who thought of something to say. There was no freedom of expression. In case anyone spoke up, questioning either the overseer or any of the protectors, they were violently beaten up or tortured to death. Themes of exploitation. Protection money had to be paid to the protector of the alley, even if the person was poor. Women were exploited. They did not get a share of property that a man got. The overseer of the mansion was collecting all the money due to the mansion estate and was utilizing it for himself or his family and not sharing with any of the descendants of Gabalawi. Through the appointment of protectors for the various alleys and paying them some upkeep money and keeping the rest for themselves, the overseer was exploiting the whole community of the alley. The descendants or the children lived in abject poverty in the alleys. These themes of oppression and exploitation are being presented in the novel as a very done thing under the circumstances. These themes are familiar themes to me, as I have seen them in many Tamil movies. It made me wonder if these are typical manifestations of human behavior, irrespective of geography. The importance of family and community. Milind had told me that I can take 5 minutes to my reflections. I think whatever
it's okay. If you need more time, go ahead.
Yeah, so I may skip a couple of bullets here and there, but that's primarily to save time. Okay, it's interesting to see that the family as well as the community got a lot of importance in the way life was being lived in the alleys as well as the mansion. Starting from Adam, his father, his mother, his brothers, and their families, he grew up giving them a lot of importance, and he was pained by the hatred showered upon him by Idris. The absolute respect shown by Adam to his father, Gabalawi, the respect shown by the twins to Adam, and so on, shows the patriarchal system followed in the families and the upbringing of the children to respect the father as the ultimate authority. This said, we do see the children showing respect to the mothers too. A friendliness existed between Adam and his wife, which was pleasant to watch. Although she was at a later point of time responsible for his getting banished from the mansion, the friendliness continued even after they moved to their hut. This friendliness between husband and wife, not just before the wedding, but through their lifetime, was noticeable in the case of Gabal, Qasim, and Arafat too. So instead of the traditional master-slave or king-harem type of arrangement between the husband and wife, that we see in stories of earlier days, it was refreshing to see friendliness in these cases. Community seemed to mean a lot to each person, something like what we typically experience in villages. What others thought, what others spoke, were all matters of importance to everyone. Quite different from what you would experience in a city. But I guess this was bound to happen because the story setting is not in Cairo or any other city, but is plumb in the Mukatam Desert. And most of the males gathering in the coffee houses or in the hashish dens also indicate that community living was a regular practice. People chit-chatting over coffee, alcohol, or hashish, and at the same time, the village poet singing to them stories of yore speaks strongly of the community feeling that kind of brought them together almost daily. The nature of good and evil. Good always triumphs or wins over evil is something that we've all grown up with. And to some level, experienced it too. This cuts across ages too, be it the time of our great-grandfather or grandfather or father. It's something similar in this novel too. Across generations, good is portrayed as good, evil in its various avatars has also been portrayed as evil. In a few instances, Idris tries to present an evil activity as good. One thing that rings out consistently across the novel is that good times are always short-lived and the bad overtakes good in the general setting. Of course, the good time comes back in the course of time. The significance of the setting. The site of the alley is a wasteland, part of the Mukaddam Desert in Egypt. There was nothing in this site except the mansion that Gabalawi had built. It was also said of this, Gabalawi created this alley, and from our alley grew Egypt, the most important place in the world. The significance of the setting is that a desolate mansion built in the middle of a desert has been the base for a whole lot of activity surrounding life and demonstrates that life, with all its ups and downs, continue to happen and thrive even in the middle of a wasteland. And it includes all that you can think of about human life: love, hate, good and evil, fight and seek peace, violence and non-violence, everything. The desolate atmosphere of the wasteland seems to add to the desolateness of the story, which is for most part circling around evilness, atrocities, poverty, desperation, violence, heartlessness of the gangsters. While reading the book, I looked for a breath of fresh air in my balcony every now and then, and made me wonder why this book became so celebrated at all. The nearby alleys, I could not find an answer for this. How did they get created at all? Who created them? The link between religion and science. I did not find religion at all in this story, and I was in fact happy about it. That is probably the only breath of fresh air in the context of this novel, according to me. Of course, it depends on what you would like to term as religion. At least the religions that we are familiar with now, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Judaism, etc., is not present in the story. With all the settings so like today's political settings and the politicians behind it, I found it nice that the whole story does not bring in any of these religions. All the atrocities that you kept experiencing in the story are not religion-based. And so I don't want to establish any link between religion and science in this context. Self-belief drives and not religious feelings of protection. We see this time and again with Adam, Rifa, Qasem, and Arafa. Personal determination to take up Gabalawi's command and see it to the finish is shown by Adam, Rifa, Qasem, and Arafa. The feeling that we have been destined to be like who we are because of unknown power above us, for example, God, does not come up at all in the story. Likewise, faith or religion does not come in the mix at all. This is a very refreshing aspect of this whole story. Attributing the good and bad times to destiny is not seen. People celebrate the good times with gratitude towards the people who made it possible for them. Adam, Rifa, Qasem. People bemoan their poverty-stricken life and blame it on the evil overseers and protectors and their goodness. These are my thoughts on the book.
Great. Thank you so much, Geeta. I think you did a wonderful job in your debut. And what I found interesting is Nidhi had planted some questions in your minds as a reflector, and you've done justice to most of those points and suggestions. So thank you very much for that reflection. And now we go on to Vikram for the second reflection on the book Children of the Alley or Children of Gabalawi. Go ahead, Vikram.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right.
A naked child stood in front of him playing with a dead rat. This image really represents to me, what I remember from the book. The sound of wailing came from another basement window. Two men were fighting and blood ran down their faces. This is the street scene from Arafa's basement window, unchanged for centuries, just as it had been in the days of Qasim or Rifa or even Adam, representing perhaps the basic human condition. Interestingly, I realized that in my mind's eye, it appears like a movie set, and Arafa looks like a movie hero, as do our heroines. Cultural imprinting is real and it colors everything. Of course, movie stars would fit perfectly in the mansion that looms beyond the alley, that fantastical, seductive yet elusive paradise on earth that remains achingly visible but always out of reach, as our heroes arrive to lift their people towards it ever so briefly before their time ends, leaving behind memories and the promise of salvation that both tortures and sustains us. The people of the alley continue to live as life returns to squalor. I don't know how to pronounce this guy, so is this Naqib's message? I need somebody to scroll. Yeah. So is this the message? From our lofty perch some decades after his time, Naqib's time, and with the inclusion of mystical learnings, Aina Eastern, yogic. Though I do wonder why Naqib ignores the Sufi traditions of his homeland. Conjecture, perhaps in his culture they remain secret, available only to the select. So the answer to Naqib's question, is this our condition? Can it be changed? The answer is yes. Technology has transformed life, democratizing many privileges. The internet and mobile devices attest to that. But the real transformation is through the gradually increasing adoption of inner technologies that refine our very nature. To elaborate, delve into the writings of Joseph Campbell, who was a wonderful mythologist. He says the mythology serves four primary functions. A sociological function that validates, supports, and imprints on the individual the norms of society. Like our modern media, the 10 edicts of Gabalawi and the myths of Gabal and his mastery of snakes. In the East, the snake symbolizes alertness, awareness. Also, you can only handle a snake if you have no fear. That may be his secret. Rifa and his secrets of healing and the power of love, the realm of feminine energies, and Qasim, the perfect amalgam of the male and female abilities, wisdom and simplicity, power and gentleness, dignity and love, mastery and humility, efficiency and honesty. These allow him to wield just power, creating the perfect tribe. This function is totally covered in the book. Then the cosmological function presents an image of the universe that links local knowledge, individual experience, to that mystery dimension of the universe. Today, this is the domain of science, just as the sociological function is the domain of law. We need to scroll. A mystical or metaphysical function inspires in the individual a sense of awe and gratitude in relation to the mystery dimension of the universe. Scroll, please.
No, that's all you have, Vicky.
No. You got an editing issue. Just give me a second. I can't see it on my screen. Maybe you can see it. Is this what's happening?
No, it's clipped at the end.
Okay, so we got sociological done, cosmological done. So we're talking a mystical or metaphysical function, that inspires the individual sense of awe and gratitude in relation to the mystery dimensions of the universe. This perhaps is the symbolic role of Gabalawi. Today, this is Joseph Campbell. He saw, he's deceased, so he saw in the calling. This is the calling of artists, poets, painters, musicians, dancers, and filmmakers. Our modern day shamans and seers who convey an experience of transcendence and awe through their art. And the last, the psychological or pedagogical function serves to guide each individual through the stages of life within the context of the culture. This is the eternal, unchanging human quest. What are the stages of realization? What are the trials of the transition from childhood to maturity? And what does maturity mean? The story is there as it is in all religions. This is Joseph Campbell. That's where it finishes.
Great. Thank you very much, Vikram. That was a very thoughtful reflection, and you had two different strands coming together. First, very briefly, you said he doesn't refer to his country's Sufism. And I think in his larger thought process, he did uphold Sufism if it has social impact and if it's not escapist in the sense of only seeking individual salvation. So in that sense, he wanted to embrace the core values of love, unity, and divine connection that you referred to in Joseph Campbell's work and the universe, while advocating for their application in addressing social issues. So I thought I should mention that as a footnote. And Joseph Campbell's thoughts from the power of myths. It's very interesting that this will come up again later in today's discussion.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So thank you both, Geeta and Vikram, for your thoughts. And last but not the least, I think the way Mahfouz has written the book, he doesn't explicitly mention religion, but implicitly he has what religion does to people in mind. So let me stop there and also say that like Nidhi originally suggested Reader of the Month, by implication, she asked me to request Abdul and Saida to express their thoughts on the broader theme of Abrahamic religions. And so I have coined this term of not reflectors because they are not going to speak to the book directly, but of thinkers who will speak to the broader theme. So with that, if Saida has joined the session, let me invite her to first express her thoughts.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, great. Okay. I am so sorry. I apologize. I kind of like miscalculated the time today, and I thought I had enough time, but I was out for dinner and with my family. So, but luckily I have found a relatively quieter place. So I'm sorry about the background noise. So with my apology, I will go ahead and say a few things. So
we cannot hear any background noise, incidentally. So go ahead.
Just go ahead.
okay, so basically, I accidentally started reading the satanic verses, but I found this book to be fascinating. As you can get lost in the book, the characters find you back like IRS. What? We just yeah,
What a scary thought.
So while listening to it on Audible, I don't know if you got chance to do that, but you can take a nap and you can, feel you haven't missed a thing. It just goes on and on. Like it just opens up new corners, and so events just keep popping up in abundance with new characters and new lines. So the characters are timeless, like a dream. This book makes the reader discover himself or herself rather than the book itself. I found that, like I found a lot of things about me. It makes you wonder if you are open-minded, religious, are you patient, judgmental, understanding? So I learned that I knew very little about the religions. I have very short attention span, but I am determined to finish it. And by the way, I haven't really finished it yet, either one of them. So the Satanic Verses was published in 1988. I was still in college, and my family was, discussing this, and I picked up, and I quite didn't understand it, and never really got to read it until it was suggested. So the Satanic Verses, it kind of like makes you feel like you're watching fireworks on 4th of July. It's very upbeat and funny and colorful, noisy, scattered, and unpredictable. At times, I felt Salman Rushdie's like
We lost you.
I felt that if it wasn't for the fatwa by Ayatollah Khomeini in 1989, it would have been not read past my juta hai Japani, mera juta hai Japani. By the way, Sam Daster done an amazing job as a narrator on Audible, and it is very entertaining. But funny things aside, it was kind of like astonishing.
We lost you again, Saida.
So I mean, it was kind of like a that how religious figures like that, but that is his opinion. In my opinion, Children of the Alley was a copyright violation of some holy books. I cannot say that Naguib Mahfouz was very creative, because recreating the ancient characters, but was also very, very creative, but brave, as it was considered blasphemy to mock certain religions. But I find it strange that it is banned in US yet, but the Satanic Verses is widely available.
Losing you again.
Since the creation of Adam around 4,000 some BCE, as in Quran, when Allah created Adam and Satan, Iblis refused to accept it and was punished by an exile from the Garden of Eden. Satan since then that day has been the villain and is responsible for persuading man to commit all evils when Allah is helping overcome the evil. In Abrahamic religion, it is believed that this world is a test for all mankind, and on the judgment day, everyone will Gabalavi says you will not be able to see as long as it is dark. And the Gabal says, but you can see me in the dark. And Gabalavi says, I can see when it's dark since I got used to walking in the dark. So that is something that I wanted to share with you. That is that I enjoyed reading both books, and I got to learn new things but it was very, very interesting. Were you able to hear?
In part, Saida, but we also have your slide in front here, so we can read it too.
Milind on mute, talking.
Saida, thank you very much for your reflection. And like I said earlier, Nidhi had mentioned satanic verses. So this was the comparison I had in mind that was coming our way, thanks to Saida's thoughts on both the books. And to her credit, in spite of being at a restaurant because she misjudged the time, I think everything that she had to express came through quite well. So thank you so much, Saida, again.
Thank
And
you.
that-
My apologies again.
No, not at all.
It's very difficult to.
Yeah, we understand. And we were able to read everything, so don't worry. So with that,
Okay, thank you.
let's go ahead and listen to the second thinker and his thoughts of a more expansive nature on the theme. Go ahead, Abdul.
Thank you, Milind. Mahfouz's book is a very ambitious attempt to make a story out of Abrahamic mythologies and narrate them in an accessible fashion. It is ambitious in its scope and magisterial in its approach. Novels are a relatively new form of storytelling. It is even newer in non-Western societies. The first novel in Arabic was published only in 1913. For comparison, in India, the first two languages in which novels appeared were in Bengali and Marathi in 1857. Mahfouz published Children of the Alley in 1959, which means that the very concept of a novel was still relatively new in the Arab world at that time. It is this historical context that increases our appreciation of the book. Storytelling in one form or another has been part of the cultural core of every society since the birth of civilization. 1001 Nights, Aesop's fables, Panchatantra, Grimm's fairy tales are all examples of stories that have been told and retold for centuries. In addition to stories, every civilization at its core has a set of myths that is internalized by all its members. So what is the difference? So what differentiates myths from the stories? While stories are entertaining, we do not believe them as true. Myths, on the other hand, are taken as true both figuratively and literally by members of a society. To question the factual accuracy of myths shakes the very foundations of a society. Therefore, even those who are skeptical of the veracity of the myths accept them as part of their identity or belief system. The Abrahamic religions, despite their history of centuries of mutual violent animosity, share many common elements and even a thread of historical continuity. Not only that all three religions are monotheistic, but they also worship the same God. They all believe in a long line of prophets through whom God communicated to humans, although the line was disconnected somewhere around the 7th century. They subscribe to the same creation myth, which makes all humans exiles from their original intended place in paradise. God is a sole creator and the source of all law, which he communicated from time to time to humans, the 10 Commandments being the most important. All three religions believe in afterlife and a judgment day. Ascent to heaven is not possible through contemplation of nature or through philosophical speculation, but only through submission to God and his laws and through prayer. Scriptures are divine revelations, and it is not for humans to doubt or question them. All of them believe in Satan, the fallen angel who is constantly waging war against God. They all believe in messianic redemption in some uncertain future date. The famous physicist Steven Weinberg once said that the effort to understand the universe is one of the very few things that lifts human life a little above the level of farce and gives it some of the grace of tragedy. Science and religion are alternative approaches to understand the universe, its beginnings and its end. Religion tries to explain our place and purpose in the universe. Science says the more the universe seems comprehensible, the more it also seems pointless. Again, a quote from Weinberg. It is this pointlessness that makes many of us seek solace in the myths because they are comforting and even give us hope. What enraged the fanatics was Mahfuz presenting God as remote and indifferent to human civil. Even worse, God dies when confronted with reason. All his emissaries, the snake charmer, the carpenter, and the merchant, failed, although they raised our hopes for a while. Science has been captured by the powerful, and its redemptive ability is nearly extinguished, but there is still faint hope that it might deliver better results someday. Mahfuz may be the storyteller in the coffee house, but he could not escape the wrath of the fanatics. Myths are sacred, and making mere stories out of myths is a dangerous occupation, more so when it involves rewriting rather than reverent retelling. Vicky, I come back to Joseph Campbell too. I admire his writings very much. Joseph Campbell, a scholar of religious mythologies, explained myths as metaphorical of spiritual potentiality in human beings. He also argued there are two orders of mythology, one that relates you to your nature and to the natural world, and one that is strictly sociological, linking you to a particular society. Thus, mythologies contain elements that are universal and parochial. Many of the rules of religion apply only within the bounded field of its followers and not to outside groups. The 10 Commandments says, "Thou shalt not kill," and in the next few pages say, "Go into Canaan and kill everybody in it." Muhammad preached brotherhood but had no problem selling captured enemies as slaves or imposing jizya on them, that is an extra tax for non-believers. The average man relates more to the second order of myths than the first order. As Mahfuz narrates throughout the chapters, the alley is always full of conflicts, and since the time of Cain and Abel, fratricide has been the permanent feature of history. On a personal note, I grew up in an agnostic household where there was hardly any religious practice. But I was deeply immersed in the Abrahamic and Hindu mythologies through my reading. We admire a wonderful novel and are moved and sometimes even transformed by it, even when we know it is pure fiction, a work of an individual's imagination. Myths are the works of collective imagination, reflecting our awe of nature, effort to make sense of our existence, define our purpose, and explain the universe. They need to be judged not on the basis of factual accuracy or historical truthfulness, but for their beauty and presentation of universal themes. They are meaningful as aesthetic experiences rather than as a revelation of truths. But when either mythologies clash or their interpretations differ, strife and violence seem to be inevitable consequences. Therefore, I will end with another quote from Weinberg. With or without religion, good people can behave well and bad people can do evil. But for good people to do evil, that takes religion. Thank you.
Nice ending, Abdul.
Thank you, guys. So
That
Thank
was
you, Abdul.
we can
brilliant.
move on to the discussion
That
stage, I
was,
guess.
yeah, that was really very telling in how religions can become lethal, perhaps because of our collective misuse of these religions through time. And that has been captured very well in the quote from Weinberg that you used at the very end of your presentation. So thank you very much for that in-depth treatment and expansive thought. So I'm going to take a cue from Abdul's last quote, and also, just for the sake of comparison, look at the essence or glimpses of religions and how just looking at religions as a glimpse can make them look very different. I used to think non-Abrahamic religions in the East are more non-violent, but in recent times, even that belief has been falsified by some of these religions of the East. So just let me share what are some of the main things that came across in this book that I used as a source on Eastern religions. And the thought that I have taken from the book is how society interacts with religions. And that's how I have tried to capture these Eastern religions. So unlike the Abrahamic religions that we had the opportunity to reflect and think about, the religions from the East are in quest of the self, embedded in society, but seeking a higher ideal. So for example, if you ask a question, who is a Brahmin? The one who is truthful, generous, patient, virtuous, has empathy, is tranquil, and has compassion. All these virtues, such a person is a Brahmin. And this came from Yudhishthir in the Mahabharata, as translated by Vasudha Narayanan. But then there's another thought which says, is a Brahmin born, or can one recognize a Brahmin by one's propensity? And I find this very meaningful in the search of excellence that Hindu mythology often portrays, where Yudhishthir's answer suggests the latter, that one can become a Brahmin by one's propensity, one cannot be born a Brahmin. So that is coming from Hinduism. Then I find it meaningful in Buddhism that religion is given as a task to monks. And so in the Buddhist community or the Sangha, there are 4 divisions. There are monks, nuns, laymen, and laywomen. The monks and nuns renounce the duties of ordinary lay people and live lives of simplicity. The laity marry, have families, grow crops, accumulate and distribute wealth, maintain order, and do everything to enable the inhabitants of the monasteries to pursue nirvana. And this comes from Tenzin Gyatso, which was the name by which the 14th Dalai Lama was born. A third religion. It should be possible for the human spirit to express the spirit of the universe through the brushwork without difficulty. For painting is only an art, yet it has the power of creation of the universe itself. An idea that Vikram expressed in sharing Joseph Campbell's framework. When the artist is ready to start a picture, his mind can plan only the general type of brushwork and composition. This is because the grand idea of the universe has been thereby expressed. And this comes from the religion we call Taoism or Daoism. We then come to what became very popular in China. Being upright and modest, reserved and quiet, correct and dignified, sincere and honest. These constitute the moral nature of a woman. Being filial and respectful, humane and perspicacious, loving and warm, meek and gentle. These represent the complete development of that moral nature. It is not something that comes from the outside, but is actually rooted in our very selves. And this specifically addresses women, which I find really interesting from Confucianism. And finally, the take on the education of women, which is such a diametrically opposed view of women from the Shinto religion in Japan. It says the outward manner and temper of women is rooted in the negative yin power. And so temperamentally, women are apt to be sensitive, petty, narrow, and jaundiced. As they live confined to their homes day in and day out, theirs is a very private life and their vision is quite limited. It may be added that in ancient times, when a girl reached 10 years of age, she was turned to a woman teacher in order to learn the virtues and duties of womanhood. So I find these glimpses in stark contrast to the Abrahamic religions, and yet, like I said, misuse of all of these religions have really led to the kind of violence, hatred that we see in the real world. So let me stop there and open the discussion to our usual common forum where all of you can participate. So
The violence has not always been only across religions, but even within a religion, different factions engage in endless mutual animosity. Whether it is Catholics and Protestants, Sunnis and Shias, there is always conflict.
And that is because of a clash of beliefs and myths, as you said, and as Vikram said. Is that why even within a religion there is conflict? I often wonder.
No, I don't think we should relate it to religion, because if you see the Russia-Ukraine war, both are from the same Orthodox Church, and they're fighting. So I don't think we should blame conflict only to religion. It's also because of power, acquisition, greed, resources, all that.
I think they're not the same Orthodox Church. They're different strands of the Orthodox Church.
No, they are same.
Yeah.
Rama should know more, but I think
they're the same. In fact, the Orthodox Church started up in Kiev.
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
went to Moscow.
In fact,
maybe Abdul can throw some light on I mentioned earlier when I was speaking about this gentleman I met the festival, Ahmadiyya from Pakistan, who migrated to Germany, lives in Germany, and had come to attend the festival. And he said, I can't even think of going back into Pakistan. And he's not even considered a citizen of Pakistan, because he's not considered a Muslim by the state. I think so. There is these virulent factions within a religion as well, as Abdul is referring to. And I was quite surprised. I wasn't aware of this extreme position that the poor Ahmadiyyas have been pushed into by the Islamic State of Pakistan. It's just crazy. I was quite taken aback, Abdul, I must say.
Yeah, what I read was that in your passport application, if an Ahmadiyya mentions the religion as Muslim, he can be arrested for impersonating a Muslim.
I ignore it. That's exactly what he said. I can't even call myself a Muslim. I cannot call myself a Muslim in Pakistan.
Yeah, there's the Ahmadiyya who won the Nobel Prize, Abdul Salam or something. He was not even allowed to say he's the first Muslim for the Nobel Prize in physics or something like that.
Correct.
In fact, they kind of despoiled his grave also, and they wanted to. But if I can take it in a slightly different context, and I want to tee off on what Geeta had said, I want to talk about the patriarchy that is inherent in religion and is highlighted in the book. Are there any thoughts on the reflectors on why that is not being covered? Because that's also a form of low-level hatred. Any thoughts, any comments on that?
Patriarchy has existed in practically every society. Okay. Regardless of what religion you belong to.
That is true. But I'm just wondering why that has not been highlighted heavily by the author, precisely for the reason, Abdul, you're mentioning. Is there a reason? Is it just that it's taken as being integral to the world, whereas all the other aspects can be debated? I was just curious about it.
Actually,
every society,
apparently from, sorry.
Go ahead, Nidhi, go ahead.
From what I read about Naguib Mahfouz, he portrayed female characters very strongly. So the women are often shown as having more strength and more ability also than the male characters. So I guess, you know, there was only so far that he could go with religion. He was probably pretty sympathetic to women otherwise. But specifically in writing about religion, the poor guy got into enough trouble as it is. If he had tried to spin things even further and criticize the patriarchy, which is absolutely part of every religion, might have been even worse for him.
And that's why I think.
But in this book, though, I thought he kind of made the woman almost the snake in Eden, right?
He had the first one, right? Umema, the equivalent of Eve. But I think he was just keeping to the traditional stories that Eve tempted.
I thought he brought both about. One was patriarchy was there throughout, but also the women are equally strong and are also sort of treated as equals in all the three generations. You know? That's what I thought he
in
did.
the book. In the book, you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah. I think by and large he treats women sympathetically. Patriarchy, though, of course, is a part of every religion.
Yeah, I didn't look at patriarchy as part of a religion, but looks like patriarchy is something that's been followed across the globe, you know, whichever geography you are in. And in this book especially, although there's a focus on patriarchy, women are being brought out as strong people in all the 4 generations.
Yeah, I think
it's beyond religion. I think it's more a society. Society is a societal issue. Every society seems to have this direction of travel, which says that the ill treatment of women. In fact, I was reading a book or listening to a book called The Daughters of Shandong, and it's about China in 1948-49, at the time of the Communist Revolution. And the central point is about the daughters being abandoned by the parents and by the father and the grandparents, left with the mother to survive on their own. You look after our property. When the communists are coming after our property, you will look after it, and they abandon them and leave them completely. It's horrendous, absolutely horrendous, and it's something that I didn't realize that it existed even to this extent, even in China. The kind of inside the house, even the fact that the one single male heir, one cousin, is the one who's given all the privileges. All these girls, there are 4 girls, one girl dies and nobody cares. It's crazy. And I thought this was very relevant to what I have seen in India about the preference, boy preference, etc. and the
Yeah.
patriarchy,
You know,
but it's so predominant. I didn't even realize until I was reading this book.
I think Asia is much worse, for lack of a better word, or was,
Mm.
than the European cultures. I was surprised to learn that in Korea, after the Korean War, the few Americans who were still around were absolutely horrified to see that the Korean farmers would make their daughters and wives walk in front of them in the fields because they didn't know where the landmines were. And if somebody was going to get blown up, it was going to be a woman, a daughter, or a wife. And they would walk behind them and, find out whether the field was clear of field mines or not.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, now we are going off on a very dark path.
Yeah, I was just asking a simple question of patriarchy and religion.
One thing, religion can't be blamed for one thing. One thing can't be blamed.
Well, having said that, so interesting.
Yeah, no, that I agree. And maybe sometime a Rom can take up the whole chapter on patriarchy and religion.
So how did Kerala become matriarchal?
I don't know how it became matriarchal, but it was for a very long time a matriarchal society.
No, Abdul.
Abdul, was it matrilineal or matriarchal?
Not
Yeah,
matriarchal.
It was matrilineal, Abdul. There's a big difference between being matrilineal and matriarchal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good point.
Action that we've had.
Let's not go down that path. We can take up many hours discussing that. More fun to talk about Trump and
Just to
others.
add to that, since you mentioned that, so when a king dies, it was not the king's son who became the king in Kerala. It was always the king's sister's son. And the king's wife was never referred to as the queen. She was referred to only as the king's consort. It was a sister who was the queen. And if the sister doesn't have a male child, then succession was a big problem. So when Dalhousie enacted the doctrine of lapse, Kerala was given an exception because it didn't matter whether the king had a son or daughter. So it was the only kingdom that was given an exception from the doctrine of lapse.
Didn't the doctrine of lapse also come into focus with the Queen of Jhansi?
Yes, that was exactly the reason.
Exactly right. That's exactly right.
Yeah,
correct.
Right. One thought on patriarchy and role of religions. I find it very interesting that, there was a lot of debate about whether the church is stronger or the state is stronger, and a lot of struggle between church and state, if you look at Europe. But if you look generally around the world today, the misuse or abuse of religions comes largely through this quest of religions that want to grab power or want to use religions as a tool for their own political ends. And I find that very interesting that religions per se, whether they are Abrahamic or non-Abrahamic, come from very good values. If you read any of the original texts of any religion, they are based on very noble principles. But today, in the heat and tumble of politics, power grabbing, and so on, there is massive abuse of religions. I mean, I used to think Hinduism and Buddhism are very non-violent by nature. But now what's going on in India and what happened in Myanmar really falsifies that claim. So I don't know what you think.
Milind, historically,
yeah,
almost all religions preach peace and would advocate for peace. But most wars in the past have been fought on the basis of religion. Come on.
Exactly. That's very paradoxical. I agree.
It is.
And as Napoleon said, God fights on the side of the armies that are bigger and larger.
Switching slightly to a different direction. Vicky mentioned about Joseph Campbell. He was an amazing scholar of religion, especially mythology. And I remember reading somewhere that he spent a few years living in India and has written a book on his experiences of India, but I have not been able to pinpoint which that book is. I have seen a couple of interviews with him on public, public television a few years ago. He speaks amazingly well. So maybe he's an author we should explore a little more at some point.
Yeah, the book Power of Myths is his, right, Abdul?
Yes, correct,
Okay.
correct. But that is a book written in the form of a conversation between Bill Moyers and Joseph Campbell.
Based on his
There are-
yeah, his book is really the Hero of 1,000 Faces, which is the Henry book. But he's written
So-
extensively on both Eastern and Western religions. Very interesting.
So, Vikram, the framework that you referred to comes from this other book by Joseph Campbell?
It's mentioned variously in different books. I'm not sure if it's just yeah. So it comes actually, I picked it up from the website, which is Sun Runs in his name, or this foundation runs in his name, which kind of condenses it out from his various books. So yeah, that's how it is.
I
Just
found it
pasted
very
something
interesting.
from the wiki page, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I found it really interesting that the power of myths came through in both Vikram's and Abdul's reflection and thought process. So it's
There's
something
a
we
nice
should
video
really-
on this.
There are a couple of nice videos, by the way. Yeah,
I just saw there's some nice videos on Joseph Campbell.
Just-
myths.
Just a side comment, IIMC is giving an honorary doctorate to a person by name Sri M next week. You may have seen the email about it. He's an interesting guy. He goes by the letter M. Coincidentally, he was in the same neighborhood that I lived, just a few houses from my house, but I never knew him personally.
So what is the reason why IIMC is honoring him?
I'll tell you why.
Mhm.
You see what happened that our chairman, Sri Krishna Kulkarni, he did a Padyatra. He walked from Kanyakumari to Srinagar, and that Padyatra was with Sri M. Sri M is his guru. And he has been called to IIMC, I think earlier also, to lecture. Now he's been given an honorary doctorate.
I see.
Wow.
He was born a Muslim. His full name
Yeah.
is some Mustaq Ali Khan or something.
Yeah.
Now he goes by just M. And at IIT Delhi, he teaches the Upanishads. And his videos on Upanishads is, very, very easy to follow. And he explains it very well.
Abdul, he has got more Hindu followers than Muslim followers. So basically,
Correct, yes.
He's more spiritual. And this, you got to separate spiritual from religion. Yeah. The interesting thing would be Swapi. Swapi has met him. He was telling us in Rishikesh, and he took him to a cave. That would be an interesting episode. I'll ask Swapi to cover it for us.
What do you mean took him to a cave? What do you mean took him to a cave? What happened?
That's what I forget, so I'm not going to elaborate on that.
But that's why we'll have to have Swapi there, other than
Yeah,
all
nice if Swapi had been around.
he took him to a cave.
No, there was a cave where some ancient, had been meditating, and there was an experience, I think. Yeah, so it was an interesting episode. Yeah.
So has Swapi properly retired to the Himalayas? Is he like in a cave? Or...
He's
Because I saw him with you guys.
He was there. He was there in the photograph.
Yeah, he was in the photograph.
He was there.
You certainly.
Photograph. Not this one. I'm talking about the one in the dinner, the drama's dinner.
Yeah.
With this,
Otherwise,
with this vigorous discussion on Swapi, I think we should invite him next time.
Yeah.
Why should we invite him?
Why should you invite
He's
him?
part of the group, man. He's a
Might
member.
not have Wi-Fi on
He's on an extended sabbatical. He'll have to be re-invited back.
Might not have Wi-Fi in the